Hi and welcome to the Combat Casuals podcast.
If you're a fan of mixed martial arts and all things related, stick around.
We'll be talking about past and future events,
Analysing fights,
and trying to provide you with the opportunity to get involved in the ultimate fighting conversation.
We've been friends for too long now,
And we always have the most bizarre conversations.
so we thought, hey, why not make a podcast?
I'm Dustin,
I'm Ian.
and we're the Combat Casuals. Oh, that's so funny, man.
I know.
Funny start.
I know. Just screaming in the microphone. Do it!
Screaming. It was awful, man. It was like a banshee.
I won't lie, when yours came in, I didn't realise how loud it was going to be, so my headphones were like bleeding my ears.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I was watching videos of, I know this is really random, but I was watching videos of Banshee recordings the other day for like nearly an hour. Like I went into my downstairs loo, and the extractor fan, like it's one of them where it comes on automatically when you turn the light on.
Yeah.
It scared the shit out of me because as soon as I turned the light on, it went like really loud. I was like, oh my gosh! And like that was the first thing that came to mind was a banshee. I thought I was going to die.
I was about to say, you were like, a banshee's invaded my house. That's what's happened.
So then I just obviously got into that weird part of YouTube where I was just like, or like recordings of Banshee and all these people out in the woods, and it's obviously just their mate behind a tree going. It was funny.
Oh man, YouTube takes you down some weird places, doesn't it?
It does, man.
Let's not get too into that because we're actually here to talk about some of the results from UFC 260, which we talked about last time. Some points that we have about the UFC and I guess MMA in general, and some other stuff. We're talking about some bare knuckle boxing possibly as well.
Knuckle.
If we've got time. Yeah, Scott, man, like amazing performance from him. I'm not the biggest bare knuckle boxing fan. It'd be great to have him on. We down the line we're going to and talk to him because as somebody who's a layman to bare knuckle boxing and admittedly a little bit of a layman to boxing as well. I know boxing. I've watched like the bigger fights, like when Anthony Joshua's fighting or Tyson Fury. But it was great to watch. It was really, really good to watch. Like it was such a good fight.
Definitely, mate. My thing with bare knuckle as well is that, a lot of people have a twisted view of it, is that it's just like, I don't know, a lot more violent, or some people even say it's less skilled or whatever, but the way I see it is it's like, it's boxing, but more pure. Like, it's boxing, but more of a fight. Because if you meet somebody out in the street, you don't have gloves on, do you?
No.
All they wear, it is bare knuckle. They wear tape, but the tape is just like kind of wrist protection. Do you know what I mean? It goes around their wrist and a bit around their hand. But the knuckles are still exposed, so it's still bare knuckle. But absolutely loved watching it. I'd recommend it to anyone.
People would say it's not very skillful. I mean, I will say now, like, I'm probably one of those people who still probably need to be brought round to watching it more. It does have a bit of maybe a stigma to it because it is perhaps more. Well, I don't know if it is more bloody because I've seen some awful like bloody rounds in the mixed martial arts sport. You know, like some of the rounds in UFC, there's blood everywhere. You know, so I don't know if it's necessarily that. I think obviously what you're talking about with it being no gloves, I think people just see it as perhaps more. I don't want to say savage, but less skilled and like more brutal.
More like a brawl, like a pub brawl than it is like a sport. Yeah,
but I'd say watching it last night, Scott, man, what crazy skill! Like both of those guys, actually. I'm not sure on the other gentleman's name, but both of them, they were great. They were both really good.
Nathan Leeson, he was brilliant as well. Yeah,
really good.
So should we, we'll give the people what they want. Should we start with the results from last night?
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's what they're all crying out for.
Yeah, that's what they're screaming for. And I mean, as we said before...
No one is screaming, except my extractor fan.
But, as we said before, though, we can talk bare knuckle boxing later down the line, definitely. And we may have Scott on as well, which is amazing.
Oh, we'll definitely have Scott on. That would be really good.
Yeah. So UFC 260. Obviously a shame. We started the podcast, our first episode, talking about UFC 260, and one of the big fights we focused on was Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovski, which was pulled off due to COVID. So, big shame. Yeah, such a shame. And I'm looking forward to still that fight. I think everything we talked about in that one still stands, but it's just...
Yeah, I'm sure it'll still go ahead soon.
Oh, yeah, big time. And
they're both ready, aren't they? They won't want to leave it too long. They'll both want to get in there.
They'll both want to do it. And it's going to be like, who is the best? All that happens is that energy is pushed down the line. That's it.
Definitely.
But obviously the big one, Francis Ngannou, is now the champion of the world.
Wow. I don't know. I've got so many like different thoughts and emotions about that fight. Like, first of all, wow. Like Ngannou, like other fights I've seen him in, and he like people say, you know, he's. I mean, one of my clients said this to me earlier today that he's the Deontay Wilder of UFC, and it's like, yeah, I understand. He's just a brute, just incredibly strong guy who swings his arm. Like he doesn't look technical when you watch him fight, but I have to say, when I watched him last night, he looked technical. Like he looked like a fighter for the first time last night. I was so impressed.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I see. I messaged you. I'm not going to claim that I because our podcast went out. I said Miocic, but I messaged you, Dustin, didn't I, and said I'm changing to Ngannou because I had kind of gone down. Talking of YouTube, I had gone down a rabbit hole of studying Ngannou, and there's some great like martial arts shows on YouTube, like MMA on Point, who actually had his members of his camp on and talking about what they've done for this fight. Now, there was a lot of focus on Ngannou more than Stipe, and we said that in the podcast. My opinion on that isn't different. I think there was a lot of focus on Ngannou more than Stipe. But a part of me started thinking, if all of this is true, if everything they've prepared is accurate, I don't know what Stipe is going to do. Because they were talking about, and there was another guy called, I think he's called The Weasel or something along those lines on YouTube, who does fight breakdowns and analysis. And something he highlighted, because, you know, the podcast has called it, we are more casuals of this. Something he highlighted was the fact that Ngannou has started to use an incredibly good underhook to stop takedowns.
Yeah.
And he highlighted it on the Cain Velasquez fight. He highlighted it on the Curtis Blades fight. He highlighted it on pretty much all of them, barring Rovenstrup, because he knew with Rovenstrup he could just knock him out because he's going to come out swinging. And a part of me was like, God, if he can stop the takedown on Stipe, what is going to happen?
What's Stipe going to do? Yeah,
what's he going to do? What's he going to do? And we saw that. Not only did Stipe try to get the single leg snap that he goes for quite often, you know, he went for that and then didn't get it. Great sprawl from Ngannou, but then Ngannou got his back and took him down, which I was like,
well,
wow.
Some of them strikes he landed from the back. I thought that was going to be it there. Like when he managed to get round to his back and he was throwing them big hammers from the back, I thought that was going to be it. Like, mate, so much respect to Stipe. He got hit hard a lot of times before he finally went out. Even in that last when Ngannou hit him with that really stiff jab, Stipe came back with that big right hand, and obviously Stipe thought he'd hurt him, and that's why he went for him, didn't he? Because he did.
I was about to say that's probably one of the biggest points. He became quite reckless, weirdly.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, his head's going to be a bit scrambled. He's just been smashed in the head. But like, I was so impressed with like just the spirit of that. Do you know what I mean? How he'd just been cracked, and he just thought, no, you know what? I've just landed one back. Let's go. And then that short left hook, and he was out. But
I agree.
So impressive, man.
I think, you know, and I agree with, I don't really like Dana White, but I agree with what he said in the post-fight where he was like, there's no doubt that Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time. This does not detract from that.
Like, for sure, man. Well, like we said in the previous episode, the heavyweight title changes hands more than any other title because any of those guys can knock out any of those other guys. Yeah. They're all so big that any of them connect and it's lights out. So that belt changes hands a lot. I mean, people were saying Kane was the best. Do you know what I mean? But Kane lost a fair handful of fights, and you know what I mean. He wasn't champion for long when you compare him to other weight divisions. So
completely,
Stipe is absolutely still the greatest in my opinion. Just going back to when we were saying about our predictions, I have to say, even right up until the fight started, I still had my faith in Stipe.
That's fair.
But I was saying to you, wasn't I, that the scariest thing about Ngannou is that his success in the UFC up until recently has been purely off the back of just raw talent, just power and just raw ability. So Stipe is at like the height of his game, as are most UFC fighters. By the time they get to that point, they're at the height of their game. You know, they're almost at their maximum skill level and fitness level. And Ngannou, maximum fitness level, still has so much to learn. So the fact that he's hanging in there with all of the best guys in the world, but he still has a lot to learn, that's the terrifying thing. His ceiling for improvement is much higher than anyone else's.
Completely.
In the last fight, Ngannou was swinging like a madman, and Stipe managed to weather the storm and wear him out and win the fight. But it was by no means like a whitewash. He didn't smash him. It was still a good fight. Yeah. And since then, Stipe Miocic can obviously improve, but Ngannou's capacity for improvement was so much greater. He had so much more to learn, and that's what we saw. He came out, he didn't rush. He was throwing nice leg kicks. You don't see that often from Ngannou, just swings. And when he was throwing punches, they weren't wild looping shots. They were straight down the line. They were, mate, so impressive. I think it's going to take a lot to take Ngannou off that top spot for a little while. I'm not sure who's going to do it.
This is the interesting thing, right? I was watching, I think it's MMAfighting.com's like post-fight review, and I agree with pretty much a lot of what they said. You know, Stipe, great fighter, came in with a good plan, but it didn't work because Ngannou's camp, another thing to highlight is from the last fight, he's actually left his camp from Paris and moved to Las Vegas and is full-time training there. Kamaru Usman is now in his corner too for wrestling. And like you could tell that things had just drastically changed. Something they said, and I agree with you. Like I'm trying to think of who's in the division, but something they said is he could be like the greatest of all time, which I didn't like that comment. Just because
it's early, isn't it? It's early.
It's so early. He's
just
knocked
chill,
out.
Man.
I know, let's calm down because like I think people have said this in the past, and then people have gone on like Holly Holm. People were saying, "Oh, Holly Holm, she's knocked out Ronda Rousey. She's going to be now the greatest." And she lost the next fight, and it's like. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Ngannou is amazing, and in fairness to him, I think a reason why we're struggling to think of who he's going to fight is because he, instead of getting immediate title shot again, which you do see in this sport, take Usman versus Masvidal, but instead he went away and he's fought back up the division again. He's fought people, a list that we can go through that he's knocked out, finished, and learnt from. And now who's he going to fight? Because he's fought pretty much the division. So I guess it comes to either Derek Lewis, who I think's obviously their first fight was
that's what they've
awful.
said. Yeah, it was dreadful. I mean, I'm hoping that this time around Ngannou would put a little bit more beans into it.
He looks better, doesn't he?
He looks so much better. Look, to be like Lewis, I love Derek Lewis. He's cool.
Great
but,
guy. Great guy.
He's the exact same fighter he was when they first fought. Ngannou is not. So I think Ngannou would take that. But so. If it was all on an even playing field, would you want to see Ngannou v Lewis v Stipe for the trilogy, or versus Jones? Obviously Jones is making noise, isn't he?
Jones is making noise, and Jones is one that it's gonna be a part of what we're going to talk about. Do you think he's making noise to be like, I want this fight, or do you think he's already looking for an excuse not to have this fight? I know it sounds strange, but like. I loved in the post-fight interview again for Dana White saying that if I was him, I'd go to 185.
Mate, John Jones was not happy about that, was he?
No, he was not.
I'm not sure. He put so many tweets on in quick succession, just bitching and moaning about what Dana White was saying.
I know. I've got them in front of me, and he's like going on and on and on about money. And that's the thing. I do agree with him that fighters should have more money. I think pay in the UFC is not the best. I think they actually have a class action lawsuit against them about this, which I hope they lose, because I think the way in which they've monopolized the MMA environment is bad. I think it's bad.
Terrible.
It's terrible. But he's not making that argument. He's not making an argument that fighters don't get paid. He's saying, I don't get paid. I want to get paid. And he's like, months ago, he was putting up pictures of like Ngannou being like, yeah, I'm ready for it. I want the Predator. I want this.
Yeah, nothing about money back then.
Nothing about money back then.
He wasn't mentioning money back then.
The second this happened, he went, show me the money. Show me this. And it almost is like, now I'm talking about money. Now that's the issue. And I'm just a bit like, does he want this fight?
Good.
Yeah. Does he want that fight?
Not that he didn't look good. Good before, but now he looks like close to unbeatable. Like the Ngannou we saw. Like, I mean, as we said, Stipe is the greatest of all time in the heavyweight division, and Stipe, unfortunately, had nothing in that fight. No. He had nothing.
That takedown was like, it was a poor entry takedown for one. Like it was a bit clumsy, but I've seen him do that to people before and get them down. We've seen him do it to Ngannou before and took him down.
Well, this is the thing. I think the main thing with Stipe is once he realised that Ngannou was like taking his time and being cautious, and after he landed just a couple of jabs, a couple of leg kicks, I think Stipe just knew, like, fucking hell, like, what am I going to do here? Like, there was nowhere for him to go. He couldn't stand and bang with him in the first 2 rounds because he's going to get clipped as he did, and he tried a takedown and it didn't go well. And I think Stipe just lost his, especially after that failed takedown attempt, he just lost all of his drive, and he just thought, well, fuck this. And then when he got clipped, I think he must have just had the attitude of, well, I might as well go out swinging, like.
Yeah, quite possibly, because there's a bit where he goes to takedown, he gets him down, Ngannou gets him back down and starts landing some bombs.
Big shots.
And he looks like shell-shocked. He looks genuinely like, oh, what am I meant to do now? And like, he starts doing leg kicks, which I think is a good way to do. They weren't heavy, but they were definitely landing, and they were going for the calf kick, which is a good idea, slows the opponent down. But I don't think it was enough. I think Ngannou was just like, this is good. I've done it. He lands a great head kick as well, Ngannou. That was such a nice kick as well.
It was mad. It was mad. I couldn't believe he threw that. Yeah, left high head kick, and he landed with the toes, but still, like, it was insane. The thing with leg kicks as well is that 9 times out of 10, leg kicks are an investment. You put them in rounds 1 and 2, and they pay off in rounds 3, 4, and 5. So yeah, it was a bit too late, wasn't it?
He became a bit too reckless in that second round. I feel like he got.
Well, his corner told him, didn't they? They said you need some output, because even though the first round, not a great deal happened in terms of damage, they said to Ngannou, you need to chill, and they said to Stipe, come on, mate, throw your hands. And
you need to throw your hands.
And that was, not bad advice, because it's true. You can't win a fight without throwing punches. But
no. But do you think? I guess there's still a question here then with, we'll get back to Jones, but I guess there's a question there with like Ngannou. If you are, well, I guess this links to Jones and Stipe, because I don't think it's a question with Derek Lewis. I don't think it's possible. But if we've not seen like him get to the third round, we've seen it once with Stipe and Derek Lewis, but that fight's just awful. But do you think this, like DC was saying during the podcast during the fight, that he thinks he could keep this pace, like he could keep this pace? Do you think he could?
Well, it's an interesting one, right? So that pace last night in the first round, yes, because it was a very slow pace. It was very controlled. It was very measured. Like, anyone could keep that pace, because at the end of the day, he was walking about, wasn't he? He wasn't like jumping around. He was walking about. He was controlling the center of the octagon, just walking, stalking Stipe about, and throwing the occasional 1-2 and whatever. So yeah, absolutely. But you've got to think, when he fights a guy like Jones, even though Jones is putting on the weight, Jones will be used to a faster pace. Jones will be used to a light heavyweight pace. So I don't know. It's tricky. But then you'd like to think that Jones would be a lot more cautious of someone like Ngannou and would stay back. And I don't know, but perhaps literally Ngannou's just like terrifying demeanour is what enables him to control the pace of the fight by standing in the middle and making them play his game.
Jones, look, we said it last podcast, Jones doesn't look good post USADA, and he looks a lot flatter. I think he doesn't look as quick. He still won his fights, barring the Dominic Reyes one, but he definitely looks...
and Gus won.
He definitely looks slower. And a part of me is like, obviously it's a big question mark of what he's going to look like at heavyweight. And will he have the answer to Ngannou? Because right now, I don't think so. Because off the top of your head, even in the Stipe fight, have we ever seen Ngannou look like he was going to get finished? Because in the Stipe fight, it was just Stipe grinding him out, right? Like,
it was, yeah.
I didn't go, oh, he's rocked. Oh, he's going to get dropped,
I know, mate. I know. And the crazy thing about Ngannou is, tell me if I'm wrong, but I was having a little look before, and I'm quite sure this is true. He doesn't have any decision wins. Every fight he's won has been... He's got some submissions, which is mental. He's got some armbar submissions and that. Yeah. Kimura, he's had an armbar in one of his early fights, but he finishes every fight he wins, and he only loses by decision if someone just manages to outpace him.
Exactly.
But again, now, like we saw in the Stipe fight, the first one, he only seems to lose the decision because, typical kind of new strong guy comes out swinging, and he's got absolutely nothing left after like midway through the second round.
Yeah, completely.
So now that he's this composed guy who still has that crazy power, but he's picking his shots and can stuff takedowns and throw leg kicks, I don't know, man. Like, it's an interesting one. I'd love to...
I don't think Jones has... In my opinion, I'm sure there's going to be people who love Jones. I know there's like people on BT Sport. I don't know the guy's name, but he like
fuck John Jones.
Yeah, I really don't like John Jones. There's so much like, because I hate that he's now, because Khabib stepped away, the number one pound for pound, when he hasn't fought in ages. Like, anyway,
where is he, man? What's he doing?
He's what? Where
the fuck is he?
I think. He doesn't have knockout power, and he never has really had that knockout power. He has had finishes, but his finishes are not like devastating KOs like
No,
Ngannou's. They're either TKOs where he's pounding somebody out, or he's like doing more like elbows, like causing them a lot of issues with sharp elbows. He doesn't have that KO power. He is
not
a good
at all.
wrestler.
I mean, look, when he landed that head kick to DC, he landed a flush head kick. Like DC's hands weren't even in the way; it was flush, and DC still stumbled a lot. He didn't go straight down. No. Yeah, Jones just does not possess the power.
Also, he was on steroids then. So
exactly, and I don't think he can put Ngannou down. That one of the things I think is really important and that people don't tend to think about, absolutely no disrespect to Ngannou. He can only fight in the division that the UFC provides him, and he can only fight the fighter that's standing in front of him. Yeah. But it's important to recognise that not only was there 30 pounds between them at the weigh-in, 30 pounds is ridiculous, but also Francis Ngannou is at the I think he weighed in at 263.
263, the limit is, I think.
Yeah, so the limit is 265. So you better believe he walks around over 265. He's a big dude. Yeah. So, but Stipe Miocic come in at 230, 234 or something like that. Yeah. No reason to cut. He just gets in shape. He's not cutting weight. So it looks like a 30-pound weight gap, but it's much more. It's going to be much more. Like seeing them next to each other seems so unfair. 30 to 40 pounds or however much it is. I just can't imagine putting, a lightweight against a middleweight. It's just bang out of order. Do you know what I mean?
It's bananas, isn't it? And when
Dustin Poirier is a great fighter, but you wouldn't want to put him in there with Yoel Romero. That's bang out of order.
Yeah, that'd be nuts. When you look at a picture as well, I don't know about you. Obviously, looking at somebody's physique is just a little bit odd. That doesn't mean things have changed. I guess it does a bit, but Ngannou this time looked leaner and still was big. So he was he was the same weight he was in their first fight, 263. But he looked leaner big. He looked huge and lean, which makes me go, Jesus, he must have wrestled and cut a big amount of weight from this to get to this, and now he's going to put it back on, because he didn't look as lean when they got into the ring last night. He looked big. And you're right, man. It is... Obviously, that's not Ngannou's fault, as you say. He can only fight what's in front of him. Yeah. And, if the UFC have that division and he can get into that division by cutting weight, then that's what you're going to do. And there's always going to be a question of, should there be different divisions and should there be weight cutting? Because these are two big things.
This is the thing that I just think is a big issue in the UFC, because obviously they're talking about, they want a 160 division, don't they?
Yeah, 165 or 160, something around that.
Yeah, something around there. Do you know what I mean? Which, I don't know, it's either one or the other. What is it? I mean, because you can have, because the bottom limit for heavyweight is 206 and the upper limit is 265. So there's a 60-pound weight disparity in heavyweight, but there doesn't seem to be any desire to address that. But then they want something between 155 and 170. It's like, get a life.
Yeah, it
seems so unusual.
The heavyweight division is massive. I don't think there's personally I hear the argument, because the UFC, Dana White doesn't want to put more divisions in, but fighters want more divisions. So Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz were really pushing for their fight to be at 165, I think. And the UFC weren't keen on that, because I think they think of it as the boxing model, where you have...
Ridiculous.
That
does wind me up, the boxing model. I don't know what they all are. The cruiserweight and all the different... I don't know what they are.
You have a champion at every 5 pounds. And it ends up being
got a belt.
Everyone's got a belt. And then you've got people who've got not only just their one belt, and there's so many organizations, but one belt, they've got 3 belts at 3 different weight classes, because it's easier to go up and down. Yeah, and that for me feels I don't know. I guess what we see is we're seeing a lot of multi-division champions anyway. I think if you brought in another weight class and lots of weight classes, a part of me is you're going to have lots of that. And does that devalue the weight of being a dual champion?
Of course it does.
You can do championships across everywhere.
Of course it does, man. Of course it devalues it. The more champions you have, the less special they become.
Yeah.
For me, it's not because it's tricky to say, right? It's tricky to say. There's pros and cons of having more divisions. You know what I mean? And I understand both sides, but for me, it's just an issue of inconsistency. It's you have all these, you have welterweight between light and middle, and you've got fly and bantam and feather, and you've got all these different ones. But then you're allowing a 60-pound weight disparity at heavyweight. It's if you're gonna do that, keep it consistent, because it's unfair to the likes of Stipe. If there was a 230 division, Stipe would still be the king, because there's no way Ngannou. I think Ngannou would struggle to get down to 230, and even if he could, oh my God, would he be gassed?
Oh my
Do you
God!
know what I mean?
I
He'd be carrying no water, so if you just got past the very first round, he'd be dead. Do you know what I mean? So it's one or the other. Be consistent. Be consistent. Either you're having all these different divisions and you're only allowing 10, 20 pound weight disparities, or you're not. It just seems very silly to me.
Do you think there should be a super heavyweight division then?
I think because of the structure of the UFC at the moment, yes. Like if UFC, like how it started, well, shortly after how it started, it obviously started with no weight divisions, but for a long time it was just light, middle, heavy. Do you know what I mean? Well, it was light, heavy at first, and then light, middle, heavy.
Yeah.
Then yeah, keep it at that. But if you're going to have bantam, fly, bantam, feather, light, welterweight, middleweight, light, heavyweight, then yeah, super heavyweight, because otherwise it's just so unfair for these guys. Like Stipe's going to struggle to get below 205.
Yeah,
but he can't get anywhere near 265. It's ridiculous, man. I don't think people fully understand just how much weight that is.
It's a lot of weight. Do you think though, like when they made the women's featherweight division for Cyborg, and I think Ariel Helwani spoke about it a lot, that if you keep the division, more people will arrive. That's going to naturally happen because there's going to be more people wanting to fight at that weight. Do you think the super heavyweight division, though, would be super thin at the moment? Because, obviously there's big guys like Derek Lewis and Ngannou, but for a long time, until this point, it's actually been the leaner heavyweights that have been the champions. So, Cain Velasquez, Fabricio Verdum, Stipe Miocic. That's what, for the last, 10 years, it's looked like being a leaner heavyweight is better than being these huge, giant guys. And I think, obviously, Ngannou's more skilled than, say, Brock Lesnar or Tim Sylvia or those people. But, for a long time, a leaner fighter looks better. And there isn't... Sure. Do you think there's the depth of these giant guys?
Well, so another issue with that is... where are you finding these guys? That's just a rare... How often are you walking down the high street and you see someone between, 200 and 155 pounds? It's every second guy is in that weight division. But how often are you seeing guys that are 260 plus? You see that guy and you cross the road. Do you know what I mean? So, A, they're hard to find. B, when you find them, are they clean? Are they going to get through USADA? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Ngannou is like a freak. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how many Ngannous you're going to find. You're going to struggle. And when you do find these guys, there's always the question of, are they clean? And then most of the ones who definitely aren't, for example, he's not a fighter, but that Martin Ford, no disrespect to anyone who takes gear if you're a bodybuilder or whatever, but obviously it's not allowed in MMA. But he's potentially going to do that fight at KSW, isn't he? And it's they obviously just don't care in the slightest. And fair play. If that's what you want to put on. I mean, Pride used to turn the other cheek to roids, didn't
Pride encouraged it, didn't they?
Yeah, they loved it. They loved getting these roided up Vanderlei Silva smashing
Bob
people.
Sapp.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the UFC is trying to be careful and trying to steer clear of those freak fights. And I think having a super heavyweight division kind of entices the freak show fights, doesn't it? Where you get your it sounds really harsh to say Gabby Garcia, because there's nothing wrong with her. Do you know what I mean?
No, but
your Gabby Garcia's. She's never going to be able to fight in the UFC, is she? Because every time she has an MMA match, they just cannot find someone her size, so she's fighting these little women and launching them about.
And it's embarrassing. It's bang out of order. And Gabby Garcia, again, she seems like a really nice person, but look, nobody's stupid. She's definitely done steroids. There's no ifs or buts about that. There's just, honestly, if anybody tries to go to me, no, she's definitely not.
Come on, she was born that way.
No. In fairness, I'm not sure if you've been following too much of the jiu-jitsu world in the pandemic, but do you know Craig Jones?
I know the name.
He's an amazing jiu-jitsu specialist. He was on Submission Underground for a long time as their champion. And he fights basically with... he's at the same camp with John Danaher and... what's his face?
Is this the guy that was involved in the slap?
No, that's...
I was about to say, because we were talking
Gordon
about
Ryan.
Gabby...
That's Gordon Ryan.
Oh, yeah, I know Gordon Ryan, but who did he slap? Who did Gordon Ryan slap?
Oh, I can't... Cyborg, I think. I think it was Cyborg. Like, there's so
I'm
many
getting my
cyborgs.
names
There's a lot of, like, I was about to say, not that cyborg. There's a lot of different cyborgs in jiu-jitsu and
because
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
because you were going Gabby Garcia, John Danaher, and that. I thought you were going to bring up the slap and how Gabby Garcia was just standing there looking like She-Hulk, like the bodyguard ready to end it all.
That? It wasn't.
Was it Galval?
That's it. Yeah.
Snapped him. And then
Garcia,
they were all going at it, and Gabby Garcia steps in, and they're like, "Hang on,
hang on a minute, let's all stop."
I want to see Gordon Ryan versus
Gabby Garcia. Well, we may be close to that because Craig Jones, apparently, I don't know if it's them trolling, but Craig Jones is going against Gabby Garcia today at 6 on YouTube.
Are you joking?
Yeah, no, I'm not. Apparently.
For real?
For real.
I have to see that.
For people who, obviously, this may be released tomorrow or whatever, this is on the 28th. Okay, so this is apparently happening at 6 o'clock.
Oh my god! I'll do my best to get this episode up today. It might be tomorrow. Hopefully today, the 28th.
It should still be on YouTube. It should still be on YouTube.
Dude, I have to watch that.
I know,
mate.
Right?
She looks unbelievably. I mean, I know a lot of people, look strong and aren't, or don't look strong and are, but like, she looks unbelievably strong. Like, I don't want to fight her. Jeez, right.
So I don't know if it's everybody trolling, but it is on Instagram.
It better not be.
It's being pushed a lot. Craig Jones has made a lot of jokes about it. Gabby Garcia has confirmed it's happening. So apparently it's today. I'm gonna be watching it. I'm gonna be watching it.
I'll cancel everything I'm doing to be there. I need to see that. Wow.
But yeah, it is. You are right. Like, you look at somebody like Gabby Garcia, and again, I don't want to be harsh to her, but when you do get, if we're just going to be moving the same philosophy of this to male fights, Gabby Garcia is in a weight category which is very uncommon for female fighters. She's very big. And I think to get her to cut down to featherweight is probably a lot anyway. Like, that is a lot, and featherweight is still pretty big if you're a female fighter. Yeah. If you do that again in male fights, I think there's not many people like Ngannou, and if there is, again, I don't want to be harsh to Derek Lewis. He's a big guy, but he's not the biggest muscular guy. Like, he's bigger than me, obviously. Like, he's going to be having massive muscles, but he's not lean like Ngannou. He's huge. He's huge and lean, Ngannou. And, he is just a once, like, anomaly, probably. Like, he's not somebody you're going to see every week. So I just wonder if they create that. One, are you going to get those freak show fights where you get, like, crazy huge guys like Bob Sapp and these huge... Yeah, he was insane. And
Sapp, man.
I know, and is the UFC? I guess if they brought that in, it's going to lead to that. I imagine. Whereas if you have 165 divisions, or another one between middleweight and like heavyweight, because there's a big gap there, like 195, you're not going to get freak show fights there because a lot of people can get to that weight.
Yeah,
that's a common weight to get to.
It's definitely true, man. I mean, my overriding kind of stance on all of it, like, even though it doesn't always work out the way you'd like it to, is I'm always like a fundamentalist. Like, I like the sport to be as pure as possible. Like, so for example, I would love it. I know it's not the great for the fighters and that, but I would love it if it was bare knuckle. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a real fight. I think there should be 12 to 6 elbows. I think they should allow knees to downed opponents. Like, all of these things. Even though it's boring to watch, I don't think there should be rounds. I think it should just be like 1 20-minute round. Like, I know they used to do that, and some of it was awful to watch when they went down and they'd just be in guard and they'd just be stuck there. But like, somewhere in my mind, it's like, well, that's how a fight would go. Yeah. No one's going to jump in and be like, all right, break it up, but then you can go again in a minute. It's like, no, that's not how a fight works. So somewhere in my mind, I like the idea of having all of these things removed. Otherwise, it's just, because that's my main, not criticism, that's the wrong thing to say, but when I watch boxing or Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu, I get frustrated watching it because it's like, it's the same as like tennis. Do you know what I mean? It's not a fight, it's a sport, because if it was a fight, if it was Jiu-Jitsu, you'd be hitting each other. If it was Thai, you'd be tackling each other, but you're not. So it's a sport.
It's a weird one, that, because MMA, I guess, is as close as you get to a sport.
Well, the UFC's slogan was "as real as it gets," wasn't it?
It's as close as you can probably get, and I think as time has evolved, it has like become more of a sport. I guess I fall on the side of it being like, I like watching it as a sport. I get what you're saying, though. I completely understand that, like, some purists, and I don't like that term because it's like making it sound as if like I'm a purist and I'm better than. Like,
yeah, it's a strange word, but I couldn't think of a better one.
I couldn't think of a better word either, but it is kind of, I guess. But I respect that opinion. I respect it a lot because I guess that is what you want to do. You want to find out who's the best in a fight, and sometimes like. You know, you watch somebody like, let's say Kamaru Usman. Like, I think we mentioned him last week, so I don't want to rag on him too much. He's obviously really, really good, and he's a great fighter. But like in a fight, like in the street or something like that, is his style going to be the best? Like, I don't know. I don't know because I feel like he is more towards the sport. But then my favorite fighter of all time, which is GSP, is kind of that too. He does
sport
fight.
Again.
Which I like that. I like that it's a sport. I like that they're elite athletes, and I like that there's a level of legitimacy to what they've done to that. Not saying that, like, you know, an Anderson Silva isn't legitimate because he's finishing people and stuff, like not at all. But I guess I come from it being like I'd like to see more sport. But I get what you're saying. There's nothing like wrong with being like I want 20-minute rounds. I want it to have everything legal. You know, but I guess even then...
You know why you have that opinion, though, don't you?
Why?
Because you're a jiu-jitsu man, and jiu-jitsu doesn't work on the streets. So if it's not a sport, then you don't really have a chance.
Do you think jiu-jitsu just doesn't work on the street?
Man, of course not.
It's the worst, you know. You can't...
It's so funny that.
It's like it wasn't made in Rio, was it?
And anytime a jiu-jitsu man tries to fight me, I just stand up.
Oh, mate, I hate
just
that
stand
argument
up.
so much.
It's true, though, man. You just push them off you and stand up.
Yeah, you know.
Don't you know how much I can bench, bro? Just push you off.
For people
Every
listening,
time, man.
For people listening, Dustin is joking. Like, I know there's going to be people listening to this.
Man.
Yeah, there's going to be people listening going, oh, what? What a dick.
Yeah, and they're getting proper triggered, and they're just like, just wait till the end. I need to know their email.
Yeah, oh, God, I'm going to tell him how shit he is. No, Dustin introduced me to jiu-jitsu, so, like, he like, you know how good jiu-jitsu is. You're like the one who told me how good jiu-jitsu is on the street, and like it's like arguably I feel like for self-defense purposes it's like the best one to have.
Aikido.
Oh mate, Aikido. Have you seen Steven Seagal flipping people round? Oh man. Mate. Jeez, I don't want to mess with him.
He defies gravity with his wrist locked takedowns. It's amazing how he can just grab a wrist and do like a foot diameter circular motion and get a guy through a full flip.
It's almost as if he can get them to jump by holding their wrists and flipping them. You know,
like impressive.
It's impressive, and if anything, like physicists are trying to figure out how he does it. You know, because it's like it defies it, man.
Mate, fuck you and your science. Your human science will never be able to comprehend the abilities of a man like Seagal.
Have you seen Steven Seagal fight GSP?
What?
It's so in one of his films. So you know GSP's like got an acting career.
Oh, so it's just in a film. Mate, I thought you meant like a sparring session.
No,
or something. I was like,
GSP would kill him. But
yeah, of course. That's why I wanted to watch it. But okay, right.
Honestly, this film, I do not know what it's from, but it's on YouTube. Steven Seagal's done so many terrible films.
Yeah.
But for everyone listening again, I really don't like Steven Seagal. Like I before I enjoyed him as a comedy value. I used to really find him annoying because there was that time he said that he taught Anderson Silva how to do that front kick.
The front kick to the face. So I taught him that. Oh, all right, mate. You can't get your leg that high.
Yeah, I was like, what? What are you talking about? So
he can't even see his feet.
I used to find him really annoying, but I now find him hilarious, and I think it's because of that comedian you showed me. What was the comedian's name who did that?
Oh, was it Tom Segura?
That's it. They call it a skip.
Who calls it that?
Yeah, nobody calls a helicopter a skipping.
Anyone who's remotely interested in that, there's a comedian. Most of his shows are on Netflix. He's called Tom Segura, and I believe that the bit we're talking about is from his special called Mostly Stories.
Yeah.
If it isn't, I'd still recommend just watching Tom Segura. He's hilarious.
So funny.
But it's so funny that how he just keeps going. How he keeps going like, oh yeah, I've been a policeman for about 40 years. Oh yeah, I've been training dogs for about 70 years.
Yeah, but it's so true.
I've been flying helicopters for about 50 years.
It's so Steven Seagal. Everything that you can think of, he's done it for longer than you can possibly think of. And you're like, what are you doing? What are you actually talking about? And I love watching his films now for comedy value because his martial arts is hilarious. Him and GSP is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So him and GSP are They stand opposite each other, like staring each other down, and GSP's meant to be like this mafia dude or something, and they're like fighting, and like
French Canadian mafia.
French Canadian is the biggest in the world. There's like roundhouse, like GSP's roundhouse kicks he's doing are like the slowest I've ever seen, and like Steven Seagal's just palming them off, and then they fall off a balcony for some reason, and they were fist fighting, and then both of them pull out knives. Which I was like, why? Right. What?
If you had a knife the whole time,
yeah. Why would you not just pull out a knife? And then, mate, he stabbed.
That's the first thing I'm doing when we get off this podcast. Is I need to watch that.
He stabs GSP in the head.
In the head. All
in
right.
the head.
Sharp knife.
And
Very sharp knife.
GSP's action. I don't want to be harsh, GSP. He's in the new Winter Soldier TV show actually, and he's actually quite good at it. But
I know he's in the movie.
He is in the movie, yeah. But his acting in it, mate, it's so bad. It's so bad. But yeah, no, Steven Seagal, greatest martial artist of all time. There's nobody can beat that, you know.
I can't wait to watch that, man.
It's amazing.
Mate, I've just got that Tom, because you said the Skippy bit. I've just got that going around in my head now.
It's so good.
He hears that helicopter, doesn't he? And he says they call that one a Skippy, and he's like, "Oh, really? Yeah." Because listen to the noise it makes. A skip.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's like. It's like the way he describes it is somebody who's like constantly telling you facts, and it's like, this spoon was carved back in there. It's like, will you just shut the fuck up?
It definitely wasn't. Shut your noise.
Oh man, but yeah, no, we've completely spinned off from UFC 260, but.
So Tyron Woodley, man, do you think he's going to go to Bellator now?
I was about to say, to loop it back, Ngannou, wow. But yeah, Tyron Woodley, if I was Bellator, I actually wouldn't take him, if I'm honest.
Really?
Hear me out. Because...
No.
Everyone. What a great podcast. See you later.
And here's me against the world to see us out.
Tyron Woodley, for Bellator, they want to be considered rivals to the UFC, right? So they need to focus on creating their own talent. And if they keep taking UFC talent, that's rejected UFC talent, not talent. No offense to Tyron Woodley, he looked great in this fight. He came out really, like, the best we've seen him since him being champion, if I'm honest. Like, the last 3 fights, he looked terrible. He didn't win a round. Even though this was one round, he looked really good. He was pressuring the action. He was going for, like, he was throwing hands, and he hurt Luque. Like, he did hurt him. It's just Luque composed himself, hurt him, and then they got the submission. So
it was awful to watch, man. I have to. Well, I mean, as a fight, it was fantastic, but like, it was awful to watch. As much as I like Luque, and I was very happy for him to win, to see how badly Tyron wanted and needed that win. Like, as soon as you could tell, it was like he was fighting out of desperation. You could really tell that he was desperate. And when he hurt Luque, he obviously just went crazy. Yeah. And, he was throwing wild shots. His hands were down and he got caught. And, mate, his legs, he got bandy legs.
Oh, mate. There was a point where I thought he was just going to fall forward on his face when he was going towards the ring. And then if the ring wasn't there, I think he would have fallen on his face because he was rolling into the ring. And
you know how out of it he was, because when Luque was putting on that Darce choke, a Darce can be tricky to prevent anyway, but you need to prevent it, as you know, but the listeners might not. You need to prevent it as soon as you recognise what it is. And pretty much, if you're down on your front on all fours, and there's an arm underneath your throat, you pretty much know it's an anaconda or a Darce, and you need to get control of that arm. But he didn't. He just kept both of his hands on the floor and he just waited. I think he was either he knew he was beaten, and he knew that if he stood up he'd get knocked out, or his head was just scrambled and he wasn't present.
Well, I think it maybe is scrambled because there's a point. Again, Luque is amazing and he's very good at jiu-jitsu as well, but because of the gloves and the nature of mixed martial arts, it's not as easy to get a submission on. That's why I think submissions, when you see a submission in UFC, it's amazing, because I know knockouts are spectacular, but I love seeing a great submission because it is difficult. Those gloves do prevent you from getting and a Darce choke or an anaconda or any of those styles of chokes are difficult with those gloves because you're having to slide them into space.
You can't get under the chin. It's very hard getting under the chin.
But Luque took a little bit of time getting there. It was not. It wasn't immediately on, and his corner was shouting at him to do it because it was taking a little bit of time. I think Woodley, I like to think Woodley was rocked more on the floor and couldn't think. Because if I thought he had just given up, that would make me even more bummed out, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think his head was just... I mean, you see the way he looked when he was on his feet, he could barely stand. I think his head was just scrambled. He was full of adrenaline.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, look, why I don't think he should go to Bellator, at least he probably would like to go to Bellator, but especially having had a relationship with Scott Croker, because like he was in Strikeforce. And I imagine he will take him because, Scott Croker's a cool guy and probably will take Tyron Woodley. But for Bellator, I don't think they should because they want to be considered more legitimate. And I think if they keep taking people like Tyron Woodley, or who else have they taken in recent years that I've just been like, that. I think the biggest, like a good signing for them was actually Gegard Mousasi because he had come off a fight. He had come off a win, and it actually was like, right, well, this guy could be a champion. I don't think he could be, but there's an argument that he could be a champion in the UFC. But they've taken a lot of, like Frank Mir. That's another guy.
Mate, there's a lot of UFC guys that have gone over there. I don't know the reasons for all of them having gone over, but they've got some real talent. I mean, like Rory McDonald. I know he went over. Was it right after his loss to Robbie Lawler, or was
it was after his loss to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But he's now in.
Still, he was still at the top of his game. He was still like a dangerous guy.
He's in the PFL.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's
right. Has he left Bellator? Yeah. I didn't realise he'd left.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of guys, and obviously like Chael and Matt Mitrione and Ryan Bader, and there's loads of guys. Sergio Pettis semi-recently went over there.
Yeah,
there's loads of UFC guys over there.
I want them to get more of the people like Ryan Bader or Sergio Pettis, because although Ryan Bader lost his last fight in the UFC, he went on to look great.
Yeah.
And Sergio Pettis, really good, talented fighter, and that's the people I think they should be taking. The Chael Sonnens, the Vanderlei Silvas, the Frank Mirs. Although I respect all of them a lot, and I like back in their prime, they were great to watch. They're not in their prime anymore, and then by taking them, I know their names, and people are going to watch Bellator, and it kind of is. People are going to tune in to see these fights. Like Vanderlei versus Chael is a fight that people watched. It was a big deal.
Yeah,
but
neither of them are. No game anymore.
No.
Yeah. And then obviously, I can't believe we've missed the obvious ones of Yoel and Rumble and Lyoto Machida.
These are big ones.
That's going to be amazing.
That's going to be amazing, and I've got a lot of time for Bellator, and I actually think Bellator is amazing. We sort of mentioned about it last time, and we're going to be following those Bellator fights that they have over here. It's going to be great because it's on the BBC. But I want Bellator to be considered as good as the UFC. And I think if they get more, I don't want to say has been because that's really harsh, and I don't think that's a term that should ever be used for a fighter because
I get what you mean though.
Yeah, you're not putting yourself in a ring.
They had their golden years in the UFC, and now they're seeing out the rest of their time in Bellator.
Yeah, I don't really want that because I want Bellator to be like, we're as good. And you have people like Douglas Lima who is as good. He's an amazing fighter.
Well, clearly Chandler.
Yeah, Michael Chandler. Yeah,
and then you got 100%.
Pitbull having knocked out Chandler. That's the thing. I want more of that for Bellator. Yeah. So in answer to your question, he's going to go to Bellator. I can see him going to Bellator. They have a relationship. Scott Croker knows him. I completely can see that happening. But I think maybe Tyron Woodley should just hang it up now. He's 39. He's had 4 losses on a skid. Nobody can take away from what he achieved. He looked amazing in his fight when he was champion. He did a great job. But I just think, it's probably time to say that's enough.
And that is like the autumn years of your career in MMA, isn't it? Once you start getting 40 and into your early 40s.
Yeah. That's it's very rare to have somebody like Randy Couture or Yoel Romero's. It's very rare to see people like that. That's just not normal. And
I mean, look, most people considered like Anderson Silva to be the greatest of all time, and I'm one of them. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. He started losing once he was in his 40s. Do you know what I mean? It's just how it goes.
Yeah. It's just how it goes. Especially with, like, Tyron's
the young man's game.
Yeah, Tyron's power, and he's got power punching, but he's not as fast, and I think people can see that. And he just doesn't land as fast. Like, I remember watching his knockout of Robbie Lawler, and man, it was mad. It was mad and quick. He was like, he could cover the space of the octagon really quick. Whereas now, he looked good last night, and he almost did it, but it just wasn't as tight. It wasn't as quick as it used to be. So if it was me, I would say just hang up the gloves. And it's
sad, but
it's sad. And I am only a casual, and I shouldn't ever be the person to be like, you should hang up your gloves. We're just
It depends how much he loves fighting, though, doesn't it? Like some of these guys, after they leave, like Chris Lieben went to Bare Knuckle Boxing, and it's like, I mean, I know he was never like at the top of his game, but he was a good fighter in the UFC, and then he was just like, look, I'm not retiring because I love fighting, so whoever will have me, let's go, Bare Knuckle, and Bare Knuckle suits him well. But so I mean, I don't know, maybe Woodley will get into something else, but
I think what's his face, Junior Dos Santos is talking about doing Bare Knuckle Boxing as well now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely growing. Bare knuckle boxing is definitely growing.
Yeah.
Should we quickly run through the Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida, and then we can get onto bare knuckle, and we can talk about Scott's fight as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I was upset about this one.
I was going to say, this was the one that I guess officially, because I know I said Ngannou off the podcast, but this is the one officially that I got right.
Yeah,
I said Sean O'Malley.
We both said Luque, didn't we? I thought we both did.
Oh yeah, no. What I mean is, like, we both said Luque.
Yeah.
We both said Stipe, and I said Sean, and you said Almeida.
That's right, I did say Almeida. That was my heart, I think, more than anything. I
get you, man. I don't like Sean O'Malley either, and I actually, I know it's we shouldn't be like too slagging off of fighters, but I just don't like O'Malley's like behaviour or character. I just don't like it.
Me too.
I think the whole I'm unbeaten sort of thing that he's talking about annoys me. I think his general attitude towards other fighters is bad. I just don't like it. I saw a joke which says he kind of looks like an old bong, like he would smell like an old bong. He does though, doesn't he? He looks proper like...
He looks like the rapper, the rat, the thingy 6ix9ine, Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, why?
He's starting to look like him. I don't know what that's about.
I don't know that either, man.
He's just a wind-up man. Like, it says everything about his character and his personality. That he caught Almeida with a good shot, which I think was in the first round, and Almeida like sat back into the cage, but was still very much with it and awake. Yeah. And he tried to get like a walk-off KO, and obviously Joe Rogan and DC and that said he's just tried to walk off to get the Instagram likes, to get the video to go viral or whatever. And it's like, it's a fight, man. Finish the fight. Like, it was just arrogance to think, he's had enough. It's like, no, the ref will decide when he's had enough. Yeah. Like, you keep fighting, and the ref will decide when he's had enough. And like, obviously, he still won the fight, and he still got the finish. But he had to do another like 2 rounds because of that. Whereas if he'd just gone in and finished it, he may well have finished it in the first round. Yeah, but that just says everything about him. He's just like an arrogant young.
I agree.
He's just a pain in the ass, man. I don't like him.
I don't like him. I don't like the attitude. I completely agree with that, because like I felt like there were multiple times where he could have probably finished that fight, and he just was, in my opinion, I don't want to call it showboating, because he wasn't.
No, showboating. He was,
but he was a bit walking off, thinking that he'd done it. And I think that shows a lot of disrespect to your opponent, like complete disrespect. You don't rate them enough to just go in and finish it, and I don't like that at all. Like, you respect the guy who's in front of you. Yeah, you're fighting somebody, and this is, I guess, what I'm talking about with it being a sport. You're not there to kill someone. Like, you're not there to do him in, and like, you're not there to show him up either. And why show such disrespect to this person who, we've got beef or heat? Like, you haven't got beef. Like, you're just there to fight. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I just felt his whole attitude towards people, like, I don't like it. And look, fine, he had a great knockout. He finished the guy like 3rd round. Thomas Almeida, unfortunately, I think that's it. He's somebody I could see him going to another organisation.
Yeah.
The UFC have cut some big names recently, and I could see Thomas Almeida going, because he's not that big of a name in terms of like, the JDSs, for example, or the Alistair Overeems.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a shame. There was a point where I could see him being like a real contender in that division. But yeah, no, it's fine. Sean O'Malley did it, cool. But I think, you're going to go against people who are going to mess you up. I think there's going to be people like TJ Dillashaw when he comes back, and if he still looks as good without roids as he did before, I think he'll have a good time with Sean O'Malley. I think that'd be a good fight for him. I think he'd enjoy it. I think he'd actually do him in. I think Cody Garbrandt, if he fights right and doesn't fight stupid, I think he deals with Sean O'Malley. I don't think Sean O'Malley can break that top 5. I don't think he's good enough against those top 5 fighters.
Yeah.
But
it's funny how like I'm not Cody Garbrandt's biggest fan. Like, I love watching him fight, and I think he's got so much potential to be great. And same as Dillashaw is obviously really good. I don't really like either of them, but oh my god, against Sean O'Malley, man, they're my favourite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I'll have so much support for anyone fighting Sean O'Malley.
Yeah,
like I probably shouldn't get this involved with with like emotionally involved with fighters, but the thing I've always had this. I think I touched on it in the last episode of the podcast. Is whenever I support a fighter, like, I almost exclusively support a fighter based on their personality more so than the way they fight. Like, someone, for example, I'm not McGregor's biggest fan. Do you know what I mean? I don't really like Conor McGregor as a person. I love watching him fight. He's a great fighter. Do you know what I mean? He's very exciting striker and that, and he's got good knockout power. He finishes
very explosive.
I'll always watch his fights. Don't mean I like him. Don't mean I want him to win. I still don't think he's a good person. Well, same with like John Jones. I don't want him to win. He's not a good person.
No.
I like to support the guys who I think are nice guys. So like Sean O'Malley, I want him to lose because I don't think he's a good guy and I don't think he deserves to be there. I don't think he's got the respect that it takes to be a good, because it's about being a good role model as well. Like, the sport is growing and the champions are the people that like the young people are going to look up to. Anyone who wants to come into the sport, they're looking up to these people.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a shame that some of the role models that young people have coming into MMA, instead of being, GSP, who's really respectful, Anderson Silva, who's extremely respectful. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Israel Adesanya, but it is nice to see him after a fight, give some nice respect to his opponent. He does give respect to his opponent. So, but when you've got Conor McGregor and like Darren Till's another one, I'm not overly keen on. Sean O'Malley. These people are kind of the new role models for the next generation. And even though McGregor loves to say like, "Oh, humble in victory or defeat," it's like that's not true. It's easy to be humble in defeat because no one's expecting anything from you. You just have to smile and say, "Well done, mate." Yeah. But when he wins, he still says things like, "Oh, none of these deserve to be in here with me." Do you know what I mean? Blah blah blah. It's like, well, that's not humble, mate. Do you know what I mean? And that's still disrespecting your opponent, saying he never deserved to be in there with you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why didn't he? Just because you won the fight doesn't make that guy any less of a good fighter.
I don't, why I before had a reaction to Israel Adesanya was he recently, I think he lost like a sponsorship deal because he said after, who was the guy?
I've seen this.
Yeah.
Mate.
Yeah, he, after the fight over the weekend that we, last weekend, I can't remember who it was, but he was fighting Derek Bronson, who, by the way, we didn't mention that fight.
Yeah, what's that guy's? Because he's always talking. I've forgotten his name.
Derek Bronson, just going to say, totally deserves to be in the upper echelons of the middleweight division now. What a guy. Kevin Holland, that's it.
Kevin Holland, well done, mate. Yeah.
He said something along the lines of, after that performance, I would be able to, like, rape Kevin Holland.
Yeah, he said, didn't he specifically say, like, I will rape you?
Yeah. It's horrific. And he also...
on Twitter?
Yeah, he also said, like, Paulo Costa, like, when they were fighting, he was like, Paulo Costa will fall faster than the Two Towers did. And I'm like, mate, what is wrong with you, mate? What is wrong with you? Like, that is, like, what? Like, so I agree with you. I just don't like Israel Adesanya.
I really don't like him, man. I really don't like him.
No, I honestly, I think he's a weird one because I feel like all those comments of like, oh, he'll fall quicker than the Two Towers, or I'd rape him, or something like that. I feel like he's saying that because he wants to be edgy, but he's not actually like that, and it comes across as like really shit.
He's very ingenuine, yeah.
Yeah, I can't stand him. But I agree with you, and I think I just wanted to put that in about Israel Adesanya being a piece of shit, but.
I agree, man. I agree. Like, it's nice. It's nice at the end of the fight. For example, with Anderson Silva, they were both bowing to each other and whatever. Yeah. That's lovely for the new guys to see. But then, fucking behave yourself, man. You're a role model for young people. You can't. I don't know.
Well, that's why
it's just showing the young people that it's okay to do that. So long as you're the best, you can do whatever you want. And it's like, no, you still have to treat people with respect.
That's why I do like Francis Ngannou a lot. Like, I like Stipe too, and Stipe's a great guy as well. Like, he's a firefighter who stayed being a firefighter throughout being his heavyweight championship. So definitely, but. He didn't capture, I guess, the imagination as much because I think he'd be the first to admit as well. He's not like a guy who's going to be talking on the microphone and really charismatic. He's a dude who's a fighter, and I like that. But a lot of people aren't going to be like, oh man, that's like really. I don't want to say imaginative, but it doesn't capture people as much. And I think DC talked about this with Arahuane, where he was talking about the fact that Francis Ngannou is possibly the first heavyweight champion since Brock Lesnar to capture people's imagination because of his physical being on the ring. But on top of that, unlike Brock Lesnar, perhaps, who is a bit like of a character of trash talking because of his WWE credentials, Francis Ngannou is genuinely like an awesome guy, like giving so much money back to his community in Cameroon, like building a martial arts school, which they were all doing jiu-jitsu, by the way, because it's the best. But, he genuinely has an amazing story of being homeless on the streets of Paris, and now is the heavyweight champion of the world. And he comes across as just a genuine person, and that's what you want from your champions. You don't want somebody being like, "I would rape my opponent." That's horrific.
100% agree, man.
100% like, why would you say that? Like,
why would you say that?
I mean, obviously, it's vile.
obviously, prime example is McGregor in the lead up to, namely the Jose Aldo and Khabib fights. Some of the things he said are just,
the stuff
for me,
he said with Khabib was awful.
For me, it's just unforgivable. It's like it doesn't matter if you shake hands at the end of the fight. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and you can complain all you want that Khabib was talking to him. Smashing him. Let's talk now during the fight, and that Khabib jumped into the crowd. But it's like, how can you compare that to not just the things Conor said, but throwing that trolley at the bus? I don't know. We went over this last time, so we won't go over it. But
we won't go again.
The overriding, the overriding point for me is just that, like, supporting someone means supporting the person, not the talent. Do you know what I mean?
Agree.
I
agree. And I mean, that's why I do
support someone if I know they're not a good person.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that is why, people like GSP capture my imagination, or people like Francis Ngannou, because, they're people who I think are genuinely good people. And,
definitely.
And you want to see them achieve greatness because you want somebody who's a good person to do that. Now, if you like somebody who's a loudmouth and that does it for you, then cool. Watch WWE. That's what I would say.
You're right.
Yeah, but it was a good card. I would say it was an all right card in sense of, like, look, it had a lot of great fights on there. It had a lot of good finishes. The main three were very good and entertaining. But it's a shame that it wasn't Alexander Volkanovski that we're talking about today.
Yeah, but we'll still get it. We'll still get that fight.
We'll still get it.
Instead of sharing our thoughts on it later on, should we just cut it out of the old episode? Paste it.
See if anybody notices it. Like, see if anybody notices that it's the exact same conversation. Like, oh, this is weird. They sound exactly the same. I don't know.
And it just cuts in without fading.
Yeah. I'd love that. But big congratulations, I guess, to Francis Ngannou, because what a performance.
Awesome, man.
Awesome performance.
Very good.
And then also Bare Knuckle Boxing, which we touched on at the beginning.
Yes, man. Let's go. So, for anyone, obviously it's not as big an event as UFC, but for anyone who doesn't watch it, a friend of mine called Scott McHugh from Leeds had a British title fight yesterday for BKB. If you want to find the event online, I'm sure you can get the replays. It was BKB Lockdown 2, which was the event. And it wasn't the main event, but Scott McHugh was fighting Nathan Leeson. And I unfortunately didn't watch the events afterwards because it was on till around midnight, and that's late for me. That's late for me. So
that's late.
I had to go to bed, and then I set my alarm for 3:30 to get up to watch UFC. Mate, I didn't know where I was because the clocks changed last night.
Yeah, I was about to say, did you know the clocks changed?
Well, so obviously your phone changes automatically, so it went off at 3:30, but it was actually 4:30. I didn't know where I was. I was so confused. Oh no, the clock said 2:30. My phone said 3:30. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, "What time is it?"
Where am I?
I was so disoriented, but no, it was good. But the Bare Knuckle Boxing. I'm sure as well. If you look on YouTube, they normally put up the replays. I'm not sure how long after, but most of his other fights are on there. If you want to search for Scott McHugh, but Scott McHugh versus Nathan Leeson, and you watched it as well, didn't you, Ian?
I did. And as I say, we were talking about it earlier. As somebody who's not the biggest fan of Bare Knuckle Boxing, admittedly, I think due to less education. I'm not going to say it because I think this. I don't actually have a strong opinion on Bare Knuckle Boxing because I don't think I've learned enough about it. So to watch it, it was great. Like, the skill that both of those guys showed was amazing, and it was a really entertaining fight. I think also because they're 5 2-minute rounds. So
for championship fights, So 3 2-minute rounds for regular fights.
It kept it exciting. Like I was really engaged with it, and honestly, like, Scott looked fantastic in it as well. Like, I like that. First 2 rounds, bit more composed, and he was still composed in the latter 3, but he really dialed on the pressure in the last 3. Like, he really dialed on the pressure. I think I was watching it, and they had Robin Black, wasn't it, on there as the commentator?
Buzzing that Robin Black is like a guest. Well, I say guest commentator. That makes it sound infrequent. He's always there. He's just not like the main commentator. They go to him between rounds, don't they, for his opinion?
Yeah, they do. Well, they were saying I was hoping they would hope it was a draw, which I was like, look, the other guy looked good, but I actually think Scott really dialed it on.
Well, this is the thing. Oh, so, mate, I've got so much to say about this whole event, to be fair, and this fight. It was great. First of all, I don't think I've mentioned that Scott won. Scott is the new, I believe, featherweight BKB champion, which is awesome.
Yeah,
British champion.
Massive congratulations to him,
and he's a crazy guy, man. In his post-fight interview, he basically just said, like anyone can get it. Whoever he wants to fight, he'd like a world title. He don't care. But, he's a crazy guy. I knew him from. I used to train with him in Leeds. He taught Muay Thai when I was teaching Brazilian Jiu Jitsu at the same gym, and we used to like help each other train. And he was great to train with. Crazy guy. But that event was insane. So I watched it on an app called. It's just called Fight, but it's FITE. The Fight app, and basically when you're watching it live, there's just a chat that's open. You know, like if you I don't know. Sometimes when you watch something online, there'll be a chat next to it.
Yeah, like in Twitch or something like that, where people
something like that.
Chat.
But that dude, it was crazy because obviously you've got all these like proper riled up fight fans like sharing their opinions on everything. So it was awesome to be a part of that, and like at times that was more exciting than what was going on.
I can imagine, man.
Yeah, but so just a really good event. But yeah, well proud of Scott. He truly deserved it. And I think that Nathan Leeson is a little bit more experienced than Scott was. Scott's got a few fights in BKB.
Yeah.
But so Scott kind of found his feet. And that Nathan Leeson, his main thing is that he's like a really elusive guy. You know, he's got really good footwork, really good head movement.
Yeah.
So it just takes a minute to find your range and actually be able to land clean shots without gassing out and throwing any bombs. So at the start, Scott was, finding the range and throwing out feeler shots. And once he realised where he was and how he moved, those third, fourth, and fifth rounds, he started putting him away.
Yeah, but, definitely.
An interesting thing about the BKB is that they kind of share with you the scores as the fight goes on. So it's not.
I was about to say that was really cool.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it isn't. Like, I like it so that you're kind of up to date and you know what each fighter has to do. Like, oh, he has to work harder, he has to work harder. But I do kind of like when it's a surprise at the end. Like, it kind of adds to the tension of like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's kind. I don't know. It is kind of
maybe.
Nice to not know who
why
won.
I liked it was it felt like it was maybe why I said it was cool is because we don't have that in mixed martial arts really from ones that I've watched, and you have like where you have like a fighter who thought they won. And then when it happens, you're like, what? How did that person did not win? And I guess if a fighter knew by the second or third round, oh, I'm behind on the scorecards, it might lead them to be going for a knockout more or a submission. Yeah. So, I actually really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really interesting way of like approaching the fight.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It is cool. And having the chat there was brilliant because obviously everyone's sharing their thoughts and opinions as the fight goes on. And I believe that Nathan Leeson was granted the first 2 rounds and Scott won the last 3. Yeah. And I have to say, I completely disagreed. I gave the first round to Scott also. I gave Scott 1, 3, 4, and 5. Perhaps I'm biased because he's my friend, but I was doing my best to watch it as impartially as possible. And I really don't see how he lost that first round. I thought it was quite a clean sweep for Scott. I thought it was a really impressive win, really convincing win.
Yeah, I mean, it was really impressive, like 100%. I'd say for certain, I again, hands up, I'm not the biggest boxing fan or scorer. If you could put me in front of a mixed martial arts fight and I could probably go, oh, that guy's winning that round. Still casual, I'm not going to be like, give me the scorecards. Although at least some of the refs, scorers we've seen recently have been nuts. But, I'm not going to claim that I know what's going on in bare knuckle boxing or boxing.
I'll tell you what, though, I'll be watching more of it. After watching it last night, I was really impressed. What a fantastic event! And like you're not waiting long between fights. Like the commentators kind of keep you in the loop really well. It's obviously great to have Robin Black's expertise there. Anyone who doesn't know Robin Black, I'd really, really suggest that you find him on Instagram. Just search Robin Black, and
his breakdowns are great.
He does amazing breakdowns of techniques and fights, and not just the big fights like UFC. He finds all these bizarre fights, and he shows you how
he
things
finds some street fights as well that he does. Which is great.
It's so good. Yeah,
it's so funny
when he does his bink. Bink breakdowns, but they're really good. So I'd recommend to anyone to watch a bit of bare knuckle. Something I like about it is obviously in traditional boxing, glove boxing. You have. I mean, Ian, I don't know. Have you done any sparring for like Muay Thai for boxing or anything?
Only what I would have done with you, and that was
okay. So it's been a while.
So it's been a long time.
So there's a massive difference. I mean, anyone who's done some training will know this, but there's a huge difference. Just like with rolling in, just like with jiu-jitsu when you're wearing MMA gloves or not, with sparring for boxing or Muay Thai or kickboxing, whatever it is you do, when you've got, say, 12 to 16 ounce gloves on, you have these two huge cushions like that you can defend your face with.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing MMA or especially bare knuckle boxing, I mean, look at your fist now. Make a fist and put them in front of your head. How much of your head can you actually cover and defend effectively? You can't.
Yeah. No, not much.
Punches are going to come through. Like, it's in traditional glove boxing, you can kind of shell up and keep your hands up and weather the storm. But in bare knuckle, that's really not much of an option.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You have to keep your range and you have to keep moving, keep fighting. And I think that's something that's really interesting. As well as that, you can't just keep landing shots to the head willy-nilly. You have to land on the face, on the chin, or in the body. Otherwise, man, are you going to tear your knuckles up? You know what I mean? So it's a very different game, and people might like to say, I don't know, it's not as skillful as boxing or anything like that. It's a different game. Until you try to punch someone without gloves on, you know what I mean? I don't think people will understand. There's a big difference punching someone without any protection on your hand, without any glove. You know, wow, man, wow, does it hurt? So that's why they go to the body more. That's why they're more choosy with their shots. Do you know what I mean? It is a different game, but I do recommend to anyone to watch it. It's very exciting.
Definitely. Yeah, no, awesome, man, 100%. I'm definitely going to be watching more, and it was definitely a really entertaining fight. And I'm looking forward to having Scott on the podcast to discuss with him, as somebody who doesn't know bare knuckle as well, discuss with him the aspects of that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, he'll be able to give us all of the ins and outs, so we'll save most of it for when he comes on, which hopefully won't be too long. Hopefully we can get him on here soon. He seemed up for it.
Awesome. Well, I guess, you know, that sums up, you know, our thoughts on UFC 260. And I guess before we sign off or anything, I liked last week us talking about like what we've been watching or what we are watching. So is there anything you've been doing over your lockdown period?
Oh, it's tricky, man. Like, I've been focusing on my own training a little bit, because obviously the gyms are opening in less than 2 weeks now. About 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks tomorrow it'll be, won't it? It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. So I'm obviously really looking forward to that, and I don't want to go back too rusty, so I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks and the previous weeks kind of getting prepared.
Nice.
So I haven't been spending much time watching anything. Have you?
Yeah, I've watched obviously the new, if you've got Disney Plus, the new The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is great, but one I really recommend is on Amazon Prime, Invincible, which was great, really, really good. It's an animation.
I've seen that advertised.
Honestly, I've read the comic, obviously, of being a massive comic book nerd. It's great. It's what I would say to you though is it looks like it's like this really light animation. It is ultra violent. It is like so violent. Like, it is dialed to 11, and it's shocking as well, the violence in it.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly,
I mean, I'll try it.
It's really fun and totally recommend it. Super, super good. I would totally recommend it. Only other thing is, obviously, I've been doing a bit of the film podcasting, which we've done today.
Yesterday. I listened to the Christopher Nolan one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. That was really good. I'd definitely recommend that to anyone. How do they find it, Ian?
Yeah, if you go to Spotify, just look up UK Film Review. It will be there. There's a Christopher Nolan one. We're obviously on Instagram. Me and Dustin are both on Instagram. So, Dustin, you're a DNA Fitness, aren't you?
DNA.uk.
There you go. Sorry about that. And then I'm just Ian Lunny. Like, I'm very unique. My name's quite unique. So you'll find me looking me up, and on there is our links to our podcasts that we do. But yeah, no, UK Film Reviews on there. We just did one last night on the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. So yeah, we were talking about that. It's just 3 of us on that one. So we're chatting about our thoughts and things like that. So yeah.
It was interesting to listen, because obviously the last one I listened to was the Christopher Nolan one.
6 people.
It was interesting to listen to a podcast with that format that felt very much like a panel show.
Yes,
it was quite good. It felt like quite an imbalance. I feel like you held your own really well, Ian. You definitely held it. It was kind of you against 5 or 4, maybe.
It was
Christopher Nolan.
I definitely did hold my own. I liked the panel thing, but I think there's going to be a bit of a focus on maybe a bit smaller groups. I think we're going to do just 4 at most. This time it was 3, but we may do a 6 down the line again if it's a big subject matter. But it was fun. But this time it's free, half of that, so it's a bit more time to like expand your thoughts, like we do talking about MMA. Yeah. You know, it's easier to talk about it when you get to more time to expand on it than say imagine if we had like 7 people on it, it'd be nuts.
Yeah,
like all of us wanted to talk.
Yeah, but no, it's really good. So anyone who's into movies, I definitely check it out. It's a really good, like broad range of opinions and different like approaches to what people find valuable about a movie. That's the main thing I liked is people were kind of opening my eyes to. You know, they were commenting on things that I wouldn't really consider, but are definitely there. And if they were missing from a movie, I might not realise that I noticed. But, you know, that's what ruins a movie. So it's quite educational for me as well, as someone who wasn't very clued up on the ins and outs of what makes a good movie, to listen to these really good opinions. So, I definitely recommend that to anyone.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's about it, really, from my end.
I still have this list of A, questions that I've been asked that we were hoping to get to, and B, just a long list of things I'd love to talk to you about. I mean, we've been on for 2.25 hours, so I guess it's going to have to wait until next time. I was going to say, can you believe we were on for 2.25 hours? That's like ridiculous.
Have we actually been on for 2.25 hours? Like, I looked up and I was like, Jesus, is that right? Is that right?
That's mad.
No, honestly, I love doing these podcasts and talking more, and we'll have more time to do that stuff. You know, obviously the last 2 ones, it's easier to focus on a UFC event. Everybody wants to hear about the bit, especially when it's the heavyweights. People want to talk about that. But we'll have a chance to talk about all those questions and more. So those people who are listening, who gave you those questions, who sat along going, come on, where's my question?
It's been 2 hours now. Surely they've found time to answer one question.
I wanted to know.
We'll get it in next time, and I'm sure we'll do a few episodes that aren't particularly focused on an event, and we'll just try and get around to everyone's questions just around to MMA in general and just theories. So we'll
100%. Like a Q&A. We'll do a Q&A podcast.
Yeah. Sweet.
Awesome.
Lovely.
All right.
Cool, man. Well, thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope everyone listening enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're listening now, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. I've been posting our podcasts on YouTube also. If you search for DNA MMA, you can find Combat Casuals podcast there. But yeah, stay tuned, guys. I hope you stick around.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time. That was so random. It's so
honestly, I can't. Honestly, I was like, had we really been talking that long? Because it didn't feel like it had been. Like, I would imagine 2 hours talking about just UFC 260 would drag. You know what I mean?
There's no way. So, for anyone who doesn't fully understand what we're talking about, so obviously at the end, I'll add this to the end of the previous podcast. We said that we'd been talking for 2 hours 15 because on the recording software that we're using, it said 2 hours 15 minutes. But then we looked at the clock, and I mean, I know the clocks have changed. I was so confused. But no, it was like an hour and 20.
Maybe that's
it. So I was like, geez, that feels like that's gone so fast. And it has.
It really has. It almost was just basically an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Mate, I can't believe it said that, because maybe it was the clocks that have messed it up. I don't know, because it would just, honestly, I don't know what point it changed. Maybe it was when it got to the hour mark. Instead of saying it was 1 hour, it said it was 2 hours. Because I looked and I was like, this is all right. We're talking about Ngannou. We're talking about... And I remember you saying, shall we talk about, like, the Sean O'Malley fight, and then we'll talk about bare knuckle boxing. And I was like, yeah, that's fair, because we're coming up to the hour mark. And then I don't know why in my head I was like, yeah, that's logical. It's been 2 hours.
Christ.
I can't believe we both just were like, yeah, that seems right. That seems...
Nobody questioned it. But yeah, so good fun. So we just thought we'd add this onto the end just to explain why we thought it was 2.25 hours. Because it did say 2.25 hours, but now looking at the clock, I feel foolish. So
just to make sure you guys don't sit at home being like, you've lost an hour of the podcast. We didn't also lose an hour of the podcast.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Nice one. Right, well, we'll say goodbye again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Combat Casuals podcast.
To get involved with the Ultimate Fighting conversation, email us at combatcasuals@outlook.com.
We can answer your questions in our next podcast.
Or perhaps even have you on the show.
Be sure to follow or subscribe or support us however you can.
Thank you to Me Against the World for our theme music.
Catch you next time.